tough on territory, wants NATO to stop Eastern push.
Informed sources have revealed that President Vladimir Putin has taken a tougher stance on territorial issues and is demanding that Western leaders commit in writing to halting NATO's eastward expansion. According to 3 Russian sources familiar with the ongoing peace negotiations, President Putin has outlined several conditions for ending the war in Ukraine. These include a formal written guarantee from Western powers not to expand NATO to the east, as well as the partial lifting of economic sanctions. US President Donald Trump, who has repeatedly stated his desire to end what he calls the bloodiest conflict in Europe since World War II, has recently grown increasingly frustrated with Putin. On May 27th, Trump warned that the Russian leader was playing with fire by refusing to participate in ceasefire talks with Kyiv, especially as Moscow's forces continue to gain ground on the battlefield. Following a more than 2-hour phone call with Trump last week, Putin announced his agreement to work with Ukraine on drafting a memorandum that would outline the terms of a potential peace deal, including a timeline for implementing a ceasefire. Russia is currently preparing its version of the memorandum, though officials have said they cannot estimate when it will be finalized. Kyiv and several European nations have accused Moscow of deliberately dragging out negotiations to buy time for its military to push further into eastern Ukraine. President Putin is willing to pursue peace, but not at any cost, said a senior Russian source familiar with the Kremlin's position. The 3 sources stated that Putin is seeking a written commitment from Western countries to permanently block the possibility of NATO expansion, particularly ruling out membership for Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, and other post-Soviet states. Additional demands from Moscow include Ukraine adopting a neutral status, the lifting of some Western sanctions, the return of frozen Russian assets abroad, and guarantees for the protection of Russian-speaking populations within Ukraine. A source revealed that if President Vladimir Putin concludes a peace deal cannot be reached on his terms, he will likely attempt to prove to Ukraine and Europe, through military victories, that peace tomorrow will come at an even higher cost. The Kremlin declined to comment on the Reuters report. However, President Putin and other Russian officials have repeatedly stated that any peace agreement must address the root causes of the conflict, a phrase widely understood to refer to NATO expansion and Western support for Ukraine. Kyiv has consistently maintained that Russia has no veto power over Ukraine's aspiration to join NATO. Ukrainian officials argue that the country needs a solid security guarantee mechanism from the West to prevent future Russian attacks. NATO has also stated it will not alter its open door policy in response to Moscow's demands. A spokesperson for the 32-member alliance did not respond to Reuters' requests for comment. At present, Russia controls nearly 1/5 of Ukrainian territory. While Moscow has made some territorial gains over the past year, the ongoing war continues to inflict heavy human and financial losses on both sides. In a January report, Reuters noted that President Putin has grown increasingly concerned over Russia's wartime economy, which is facing labor shortages and high interest rates aimed at curbing inflation. Oil prices, a key pillar of the Russian economy, have also seen steady declines this year. US President Donald Trump, who has previously touted a close relationship with Putin, recently warned that additional sanctions may be imposed if Moscow continues to stall peace efforts. On May 25th, Trump posted on social media that President Putin had completely lost his mind following a massive airstrike on Ukraine last week. The first source said that if President Vladimir Putin sees a tactical opportunity, he will continue advancing deeper into Ukraine. The Kremlin believes Russia can sustain the war for years, despite ongoing Western sanctions. The second source noted that Putin is currently less willing to compromise on territorial issues and remains firm in his public stance that Russia must retain full control over the 4 eastern Ukrainian regions it has claimed to annex. President Putin has grown more hardline on territorial matters, the second source said. As Trump and Putin exchange public barbs over the prospects for peace, it remains unclear whether this military escalation and hardened positions are intended to pressure a negotiated settlement or signal a collapse in peace talks altogether. In June of last year, President Putin had laid out initial conditions for an immediate peace deal, which included Ukraine abandoning its NATO membership ambitions and withdrawing forces from all 4 territories Russia claims to have annexed. Beyond Crimea, Russia currently controls nearly all of Luhansk and over 70% of Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions.